Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Krishna Kunapareddy, and I work with NADO, and I'll be moderating this session today. So a little bit of introduction here. The National Association of Development Organizations Research Foundation, in partnership with the Center for Environmental Excellence, invites you to join this Rural Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Virtual Pure Exchange session. Couple housekeeping items here. Please introduce yourself and where you work in the chat box. And thank you so much, Carrie, for helping me with this session. With this, I'll turn it over to Joshua Rodriguez from ASHTO.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. As Krishna said, I'm Josh Rodriguez. I'm the director for the Center for Environmental Excellence by ASHTO. The center is a cooperative agreement with Federal Highways, and we promote and advocate project delivery and environmental excellence in both the human and natural environment. Our goal is to assist transportation agencies all over the country and truly in North America, because we've actually just met some agencies from Canada this week. In achieving, that excellence in the environmental space during project delivery. I want to thank you all for being here today to participate in this peer exchange. I want to thank NADO for convening the peer exchange today. The deployment of electric vehicle infrastructure in rural areas doesn't get the same buzz and excitement that it does along the corridors and the urban centers. That's where you hear all the great news and everybody talking about new charging stations, et cetera. But truly, infrastructure in the rural areas is vital to this EV future working, and it's key to the whole national network working as well. So this is going to serve as a very important peer exchange, very great for everybody that's convening today, and then as a resource for others later. This recording will be posted on the Center for Environmental Excellence's website as a resource. Please feel free to share it. Provide it in any context that you feel is necessary. We hope that this is a continued, discussion throughout, and, we want to make sure that we're disseminating as wide as possible. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Krishna and thank NADO again for convening and welcome all the attendees.
Thanks, Josh, for the opening remarks. I'm going to just briefly go over the agenda here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about NADO and what we do, and then we're going to do the presentations, and then we're going to have breakout rooms. So a little bit about NADO. NADO is National Association of Development Organizations, and we are we have members about 540 regional development organizations, including emerging network of rural transportation planning organizations, aka RTPOs or RPOs. We help promote public policies that strengthen local governments, communities, and economies through the regional strategies, coordination efforts, and program expertise of the nation's regional development organizations. So we are part of the Research Foundation staff, and we work to develop training and resources like one of these peer exchange sessions here to our rural, small metropolitan transportation planning organizations, small business finance, economic development planning, regional resiliency, and developing quality of place. With this, I just want to talk a little bit about this session just to give a brief introduction. I'm sure you all agree this is an exciting time in our country as we work to establish a framework for the future with new and emerging technologies in transportation. This interactive peer exchange will introduce what EVs are, what EV transition means in rural regions, and how state DOTs and rural organizations such as RPOs are coordinating the efforts of incorporating EV infrastructure. The goal of this session is to understand how, like I said, how the state DOTs are planning for EV infrastructure and their level of coordination with communities to incorporate the EV charging stations. With this, I'm going to turn it over to the presenters. So I just want to introduce the presenters for today. Andrea Noel, she's the programs supervisor at Tennessee Department of Transportation. Thank you so much, Andrea, for your time. And the second presenter is Chase Milner, he's a rural planning organization coordinator from First Tennessee Development District. So with this, I am gonna, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the slides. Is that okay with you, Andrea?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, just a second. Just let me know when you see the slides.
I can see them. Thank you.
In editor view.
Yeah, yep, just a second. Is it all good?
No, it's there we go. Yes.
Alrighty.
Yes, thank you, Krishna. I guess I'll just go ahead and get started. If you want to just go ahead into the next slide, that'd be great. I just wanted to start with an overview of the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, the NEVI program, for those who might not be as familiar with it as some of us. So when the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act was signed in February 22, it included $7.5 billion for EV infrastructure. $2.5 billion will be released in the form of competitive grants from federal highway, but $5 billion of that is formula funding, meaning that funds go straight to the states to manage. And I'll talk about Tennessee's apportionment in a few minutes. The NEVI program is very specific about how the funds are to be spent. So next I'll talk about some of those federal criteria. If you want to go to the next slide. In 2016, the Federal Highway Administration began the Alternative Fuel Corridor Program, allowing states to nominate corridors of priority to support installation of EV charging, hydrogen, propane, and natural gas. But the NEVI program really is the first one that's tied to those designated alternative fuel corridors by stating that the program funds shall be used along designated AFCs until they're designated as fully built out by the Secretary of Transportation. In Tennessee, we designated all 2-digit interstates as well as US 64, and it's about approximately 1,500 miles a corridor. And what does it mean to be fully built out? I will talk about that now on the next slide. So what it takes to become fully built out, all of the designated AFCs must have a charging station every 50 miles. The station must be within 1 travel mile of the exit and include a minimum of 4 CCS type charging ports and be capable of charging at a minimum of 150 kilowatts simultaneously. So if you have more than one car plugged in at a time, they both have to be able to get 150 kilowatts. The next slide, the last federal criteria I'll talk about is the deployment plan. So the NEVI program is a little bit different because normally when we write a plan, it's good for 5 to 10 years. But for the NEVI program, we have to write the plan and then update it every August and talk about how we're going to spend our funds for the following year. And then those are usually approved in September, and that's what unlocks our funding for the next year. So that's a little bit different than some of the other programs. Next slide. So before I went too far, I just wanted to talk about a few EV basics, just to make sure everyone understands some of the language and terms that we use in the program, not just the NEVI program, but just in EVs in general. So what is an electric car? And normally when I'm in person, I have people raise their hands like, who knows what an electric car is? But it has to be able to be plugged in to charge a battery to be considered an EV. So just the word hybrid means a lot of different things to different people. So we try to use the words battery electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles. So on the next slide, I'll talk about some of the charging. So level 1 is how most EV owners charge at home. It requires an outlet similar to what you'd plug your clothes dryer into. It takes an average of 10 to 12 hours, but all of these are relative to like how big your battery is and how much charge you already have. So, so level 2 is what you would charge at home. Level 1, I'm sorry. Level 2 is the most common type of public charging. It's a charger you mostly likely see at grocery stores, near shopping, restaurants, and at the workplace, and can take an average of 1 to 2 hours to charge your EV. And level 3, also called DC fast charge, is what we're installing along the interstates. It can take an average of 10 to 15 minutes, just depending on the size of your battery as well. And the next slide, I'll talk about some connector types. So in the United States, connector types have not been standardized. So car manufacturers can choose what type of port they want in their car. Right now, there are several different types of ports, but the most common are the CCS, the CHAdeMO, and the NACS, which is the North American State Charging Standard. But CCS is the connector that is required for the NEVI program because it's the most common on most EV models. So the next page, I just wanted to transition to the TEVI program. So in Tennessee, we added T to everything. So instead of being the national, we call it the Tennessee Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. So on the top of the page, you can see our apportionments by year. It equates approximately to about 18 million a year from 2022 to 2026. And by the timeline, you can see we've been working diligently to write our plan, get our funding opportunity to implementation. We opened our first round of funding last August, and we made our awards in January of this year. And right now we're in the contracting phase for those. And we intend to open a second round of funding this summer sometime. And the next slide, prior to our first plan in 2022, we implemented our public participation plan, which included a statewide online survey. It was open for the whole month of May, and we received over 1,000 responses. We got at least one response from 73% of our 96 counties. 64% of the respondents identified as a member of the public. So on the next slide, so during the month of May, while the survey was open, we also conducted 9 in-person engagement sessions across the state, which were all held in disadvantaged communities. We talked about the program, we answered questions, but we also asked the participants to fill out the survey so we could record all the data in the same format. So the survey asked respondents to rank 10 different criteria that they would like us to consider for the awards. The criteria that ranked first most often was daily traffic, which meant to us that they really wanted us to put chargers in locations of high traffic areas. And during our process to identify eligible areas, we tried to consider that to the best of our ability, but we were limited to areas only within a mile of the corridor. And we also had to include rural areas because of the 50-mile criteria. So, but the second and the third most common criteria that ranked the highest in the survey were proximity to amenities and equitable access. So in our application process, we gave points for the number of amenities that a site had, and also we gave points to projects that were located in disadvantaged communities. So the next slide shows, this is our round 1 awards. So the red squares were existing AFC creditable chargers, but the green stars are what we awarded. So we awarded 30 projects this round. 9 of those were in MPO areas, but 21 of those were in our RPO areas. So 21 of those were in our rural areas. 14 of those were located in disadvantaged communities as well. So next steps on the next slide, please. So phase 1 of the NEVI program requires states to fully build out the alternative fuel corridors. And once a state has gotten certification of that, then they can utilize the remaining formula funds for phase 2, or what we call post build out. So the criteria changes for phase 2, so which includes level 2 chargers. And since they don't have to be on the alternative fuel corridors, they could also be located on secondary corridors, scenic byways, tourist destinations, curbside at multifamily housing, and a multitude of other opportunities. So in Tennessee, our next steps are to start on our statewide needs assessment this summer sometime, which may take about a year. But within that timeframe, we also plan to release round 2 for our AFC opportunities. But by 2026, we'll conduct another round of stakeholder engagement based upon findings from the needs assessment. We expect to request fully built out certification of our AFCs in 2027 so that we can start implementing phase 2 projects in probably around 2028. So that's where we're at with our Tennessee program. On the next page, I just wanted to give you guys a couple resources that we use here in Tennessee all the time. So this one is a great site. This is from the Atlas EV Hub. State agencies submit registration data to Atlas, so you can see where your state is at. You can see in Tennessee as of March 31st, we had over 39,000 registered EVs. So the darker areas have higher numbers of registered EVs. I use this often to help our mayors see how many EV owners they have in their communities, so it helps them gauge the level of interest that they have in their community. And on the next slide, this one is the Alternative Fuels Data Center, and I literally look at this every week. It's not just for EVs, because you can also find hydrogen, propane, natural gas stations as well. You can filter by charger levels, so you can see how many level 2 you have existing or how many level 3 chargers that already exist in your communities. You can also filter by connector type, and you can click on the green dots. When you click on the green dot, it brings up all the station information. So it tells you what kind of ports, it tells you the address. But this is what we use to track like when new stations come online. It's definitely one of my go-to sites, and I try to tell all the communities about it so they can look on their own as well. And the last slide I have is, this was a really good toolkit that was recently released by the US Department of Transportation called Charging Forward. It's filled with a lot of helpful information for rural communities. I know in Tennessee, when we open our funding for phase 2, we're going to want to see that communities have started planning for EV infrastructure. And if you haven't started planning for it, you're probably not going to make the cut in getting the funding. So I think this is a really good resource for RPO coordinators to bring out to their communities and try to help their mayors and their communities start planning for EVs in their communities. So that's all I've got. Our website and email address is there for later. And if you want to reach out, just feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Well, you see Chase?
Slides look good.
Okay, thank you.
You're muted, Chase.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Thanks for having me on. So my name is Chase Milner. I serve as a rural planning organization coordinator in Northeast Tennessee. And I just wanted to show you a few slides about how we've been implementing EV-related deployment in our region. So just to give you a little perspective of where I am, I live in Johnson City, which is right in the heart of that heat map right there. Johnson City is a part of a Tri-Cities area. We have about 500,000 residents within the Tri-Cities of Northeast Tennessee. When you combine all those 3 cities, it makes up about the 6th largest urban area in Tennessee. But what I do is I serve the rural region in this area, which makes up an 8-county region around the Tri-Cities. So the Tri-Cities are served by a metropolitan planning organization. And you can think of me as the yin of that yang. So the Tri-Cities have their NPOs, and so I serve the RPOs outside of the Tri-Cities urban areas. But these are the Tri-Cities that we mentioned. It's the beautiful hometown I live in right there. And next slide. So this gives you another perspective of the map. Wanted to draw the attention to the interstates that bisect this region. I-81 goes through from the southwest to northeast, and then I-26 begins here and terminates down through Columbia, South Carolina. And you can see that going through the Tri-Cities and through Unicoi County as well. So those are the 2 interstate regions that we serve here. So we can go to the next slide. So again, what is an RPO? So in Tennessee, the RPO programs were formed in 2005 to enhance the state and regional planning partnerships in rural areas and to advance transportation plannings. So I am one of 12 RPO coordinators within the state of Tennessee. And most of my work is funding and reimbursed by the Tennessee Department of Transportation. I also have a few other hats at the office in the development district. So I do environmental reviews. So I'm kind of a quasi-environmental planner right now. Also a community planner when need be, serving in that role with our planning department. And so, yeah, the RPO is housed within the district. So this gives you the coverage area of the other RPOs. So the areas in gray on this map are designated as the MPOs, and the areas in color are the rural planning regions across the state of Tennessee, as well as the contacts. So again, really the goal is to involve local officials in the multimodal transportation planning process. We have an executive board, a technical committee. We meet biannually, and my real focus is to work with county highway department superintendents, mayors of our all of our rural counties, and also our municipal mayors as well that are within the RPO. But I also have a lot of contacts with the school superintendents, public works directors, etc. Just this morning, I was working on multimodal applications for the TDOT grant that is due next week. And we look at projects that TDOT has in our area on state routes. We vote on those projects in the fall. And so my entryway into the EV space is identified in a work plan. So I work off of a 5-page work plan that we are actually in the process of updating for another contract. It's a 2-year work plan with the state of Tennessee. TDOT approves those work plans, but there's this really innovative Task 5 within the work plan where we are allowed as RPO coordinators to focus on projects that are of specific need to our region, both self-selected projects that we are creating through our own personal interests, but really what are the needs identified through the planning process with those mentioned on the technical committee, executive board, county mayors, etc. We want to focus on those types of projects in Task 5. So on this page, we're looking at some of the partnerships and the projects that help fund Task 5. So I want to point out Empower. That is an acronym that is that it's a workplace charging program. So the First Tennessee Development District, my office, we're looking at putting in a fleet bank of a fleet of vehicles, EVs, with about 15 charger ports, level 2s, and we are working through the Empower program to do that. I would definitely encourage folks to look at that if you're interested in workplace charging development. As Andrea mentioned, TEVI, NEVI, those are real big pots of money for a lot of great fast charging development that a lot of private partners are taking advantage of in the state of Tennessee through the awards that were outlined by Andrea. And I think she also mentioned the Roots toolkit. The US DOT has a really great toolkit that is just an excellent resource for those who are just beginning to get in this space. I came into the electric vehicle space through dear friends of mine that work at the Virginia Clean Cities Coalition. And I want to encourage all those attendees of this video to look at your individual states and see if you have a Clean Cities Coalition. They not all U.S. states have Clean Cities programs, but fortunately we have one here in Tennessee that I was able to get connected with when I moved to Tennessee and got involved in this position. Because really the funding opportunities, there are a lot of opportunities that we'll mention further, but some of which it really helps finding the right partners that already have taken advantage of grants that you can become a partner and stakeholder in an active grant partnership. For instance, the Department of Energy here. We are currently my employer. We're looking at the number one item here, the Communities Take Charge Accelerator. We see this as a really good opportunity for us to potentially help fund the creation of a fleet of EVs at our workplace. But secondly, and one that I'm going to really go kind of into the weeds on here in this presentation, is Rural Reimagined. It's been an excellent program that the Tennessee Technological University out of Cookeville applied for. And through the connections of Clean Cities program, I actually got connected with Tennessee Tech at one of their gatherings. And we've been a part of the Rural Reimagined project for going on about a year and a half now. So next slide. So this is the page for the Roots, the toolkit that I really would encourage folks to look at individually. Amanda Rogers works there at the USDOT. This is housed within Secretary Buttigieg's office. I really encourage that folks check out that page for federal opportunities for the rural areas. And we don't need to hold on this long, but I just wanted to point this out again. The TEVI program that Andrea administrates is really an exceptional opportunity for creating fast chargers along the alternative fuel corridors. And so I think she outlined that really well. So we can go to the next slide. And this shows you again the funding rollout. So in my area, I believe there's at least 3 awards. Those are mostly have gone to private contractors and companies that are working to put in these DC fast chargers along I-81 and I-26, following the standards as outlined in the program. But it's a really, really great program. And within Tennessee, especially if you have a project site that is soon to be shovel ready within a mile or so from the U.S. interstates. So we can go to the next page. So again, this gives you an idea of what the work program looks like within Task 5 and the RPO. So across this region, we hosted a workshop to do education, which I find is a real key for those that are beginning to get into this space. If you're new to it, really would encourage you all to try to have EV workshops, because it's just an exceptional networking opportunity to get contractors connected to projects, funding connected to site hosts, etc. We had an excellent workshop in Kingsport this spring, and we participate with really, I would say, a key messenger for what Andrea Noel is able to do out of the TDOT's department with the public participation plan. You know, when I get information from Andrea that she'd like to share with surveys, etc., it's really important that the RPOs share that information with their region to get the best data to her that both serves the state's needs, but really puts our local needs on the map as well, because that's what we've been doing here. I applied for a USDOT Thriving Communities program, Main Streets program, which was an excellent opportunity that has unlocked additional technical assistance, as well as a $90,000 subgrant award for the planning needs within Mountain City up in the far northeastern corner of Johnson County. So these are some of the project sites, I believe. And yeah, I think everything here I've talked about. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Rural Reimagined on the next slide here. So what is Rural Reimagined? Well, it's essentially it's about a $5 million Department of Energy grant that was awarded to Tennessee Tech. And one of the neat aspects of Rural Reimagined is you can actually rent a EV at no cost. So this was the rollout. The photos here are from Sneedville, Hancock County, home of the king of bluegrass, Jimmy Martin. It is a very remote part, Distress County in our region. Beautiful area. This is where we rolled out Rural Reimagined. It's about a 5-state project partnership That is a Ford Lightning and Ford Bolt EUV there that are on the road right now in separate hands. About every other week, they go to a new driver, which is giving people the firsthand perspective of not only how fun and how safe they can be to drive, but also if they are going to be something that each of these drivers can use in their daily lives. So it's a really, really great testbed project. When you go to the next page. And so this is the website that you can go to look at how this program has been rolled out. And if you're in Tennessee and you're in this region, I highly encourage you to sign up if you want to test drive one of these great vehicles. So how the Rural Reimagined program has been working and how it's worked with the RPO is we're looking at these 5 different, within the concept paper, these 5 different programs as identified here. This is the focus of the project. But so what I am trying to do specifically in the RPO is to develop EV site host locations. So this is one of our most recent chargers that was put in at the Doe Mountain Recreation Area just last month. We can go to the next slide. And so these are level 2 chargers at East Tennessee State University, a great partnership program with Bright Ridge, our local utility. Next slide. So if you're in Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Virginia, I really encourage you to look at this program. Rural Reimagined serves all of these states, as mentioned, and it is an excellent opportunity for helping to create new fleet EV vehicle deployment, but really a really wonderful opportunity to get level 2 charging stations developed at low to no cost. And also DC fast chargers are being deployed and given to site hosts at no cost. Really, the only cost is going to be the installment of the units. So that is all happening right now. You can go to the next slide. Here are some of the project partners. I hope you all can read that within these states. So, as part of this project, I've been working across state lines, communicating with my friends in the Commonwealth of Virginia, also communicating with friends that are now president of Fairmont State University, looking at how they can get involved with the West Virginia section of this project. And my home state of the Commonwealth of Kentucky is on here too, making connections there on behalf of this project so that we can get more EV chargers on the road in rural eastern Kentucky. All right, so the main tasks are here. We can just look at that a little bit. Give folks some time to read that. And I'll be open for questions about this. We can go to the next slide. So yeah, this project ends October 31st, 2025. There's still definitely time to get involved with site host selection. So I would encourage those within these states to really look at this opportunity. All the stakeholders are photographed here on the side, including me, First Tennessee Development District. So what we're deploying through this project are level 2 and DC fast chargers, predominantly charge point charger units, but also the EV Match Juice Box 40. We are deploying those as well, which are really great for wall-mounted level 2 units, and a selection of vehicles, as you see down below, that are on the road in all the states as part of the project. You can go to the next slide. So should you be interested in this project and learning more, I really would encourage you to take down Dr. Ping Chin's contact information right there and his phone number. Happy to get anyone connected, especially if you're in those 5 states, because we still have a lot of opportunity to create new site hosts for charging. So this gives you an idea of what I've done through this project. Is I've looked at, in year 1, we had about 12 sites selected, and these sites were cultivated through conversations with county mayors, local business park affiliates, our local power providers, our local recreation areas, and chambers of commerce. Right now, we have a Chamber of Commerce site approved for a DC fast charger that I'm hoping to build out this year, as well as multifamily. I really want to hit home on the multifamily opportunities, because this project was really focused on creating the infrastructure for low to moderate income multifamily units, so that the charging infrastructure would be there in our rural areas where there are multifamily units. And there are, I think, at least 52 chargers left to be used for the multifamily units. So that is a really good opportunity that specifically is identified in the concept paper with Rural Reimagined. So thanks to Mayor Jerry Jordan and our partnership, we were able to create the first EV charger in the entire program in Mountain City, Tennessee. So that was exciting. If we could click it again or two, it might. Yeah, here we go. Got a little animation. Should have a photograph. So this is what an EV charger looks like from the wall mount unit. What's really exciting about the EV Match wall unit was that this was completely paid for 100% by the program. The cost coverage with putting this in on a wall mount compared to creating the site pedestal and going through concrete and putting it in the parking lot, it was a lot more affordable, and thus it didn't cost the town of Mountain City a dime. And it's got a pay a fee structure on there. So if you click again, you'll see when we got this installed in late September, October, I got to drive the Rural Reimagined Bolt EUV up there and plugged it in for about an hour. And it cost me, I think it was like 35 cents, or it was something, I think, under $1 for being plugged in. And I got the range back from what it took to get there, about 47 miles away from the office. And great experience working with the mayor to deliver this unit, and with the company EV Match. They were really easy to work with, with educational webinars about how to get it installed, etc. But I want to point out some other opportunities in Tennessee, because you might have this across your region as well. But Rivian, the EV car company, has created a unique partnership with Tennessee State Parks, where they have deployed and developed level 2 chargers that are at, I believe, every state park in Tennessee. And these are free chargers to be used. And coincidentally, for the couple weeks that I was able to lease the Rural Reimagined EV, I had at least 2 meetings at the state park or passing by it, and was able to plug in there and get free charge it, which for about 45 minutes of charging, I got about 45 miles of range back. So it was a great experience, and really neat program that I'm glad to see that Tennessee State Parks has taken advantage of. And so I wanted to point out along I-81. So when I first came into the position of really looking at what the EV footprint was and where it was lacking when I moved to the area in 2016, it starts by looking at the interstate corridors and identifying the AFC corridor designation. And that's, as a RPO coordinator, I was really hoping that we could get the corridor from a corridor pending status to a corridor ready status with identifying where charging units can be placed. Fortunately, through private partners here in Baileyton, which is in right off of I-81 in Greene County, exit 36, we were able to get a DC fast charger put in, and this was a partnership through a private a Davy Crockett Travel America site that had 7 states cooperative help put this unit in. So right now, if you're passing through the state of Tennessee, you've got DC fast charging options in Bristol, Tennessee, as well as Baileyton before you get to Knoxville, Tennessee. So it's allowing us to kind of close the gap on the U.S. interstates. So we can go to the next slide. So what I did in October was I was able to take an EV through the program across the state, used it as a testbed study, if you will, and just wanted to point out some of the exciting things that's happened in Tennessee right now. As of today, Tennessee is EV ready, and not only for Teslas. The Tesla supercharge network is very well built out, but we've got in the state right now 150 Ford DC fast charge locations. That's 572 individual ports, as well as 714 level 2 locations, which is about 1392 individual ports. That 714 level 2 unit, in my opinion, is still low, and that is where I think the Rural Reimagine program and other opportunities that Andrea's office is offering and the federal partners are offering. That's where I think that we really need to focus on in our rural areas, is getting that level 2 charger station number up, and really specifically looking at county office buildings, parks, areas that are near our main streets. Those are the areas that we're looking at in our rural region to develop level 2 charging sites. And so yeah, we've got the TEVI build out is underway, as mentioned by Andrea. And I just wanted to point out that the projected EV range and actual mileage range can be a challenge. When I was driving, I bypassed that Baileyton station on behalf of trying to make some better time on the road. Well, it really got close to my range anxiety did happen. I did get a little range anxiety, but I got to where I needed to be in Cookeville on I-40 at a Electrify America site to get charged up. So we're good there. But yeah, the EV, the actual range and projected range, it does change. There is a bit of a bell curve when you're out on the road. So it's a little challenging sometimes when you're driving by yourself, trying to multitask understanding where you're going to charge up next. But back to the comment about getting connected with local clean cities coalitions. I really would encourage folks to start there if you're new to this process, and look at your regional and state universities that might already have active projects like the Rural Reimagine project to take advantage of opportunities where you can get in as a stakeholder and a partner to current awarded projects. In our case here with a Department of Energy grant. And so also wanted to just point out, when you are driving an EV, if you're new to that, it's really helpful to have that smartphone handy. If you've got a smartphone, and to download separate apps for each of the different charging companies, so that you can load up money and have that on your phone. But I would really encourage folks to utilize PlugShare. That's a free app that allows you to check in advance about the status of charging units. If they're working, it's really, really helpful to read comments. It might save you a parking ticket in Memphis if you read it in advance, and if you don't, you get a parking ticket in some cases. Yeah, it's a really great app to look into for added information. And so I think we can go to the next slide. So this is my contact information. I really welcome anybody to reach out should you have any other additional questions that I can help with, because so much of what I've experienced in becoming an EV advocate is just there's education for everybody. I really would be more than happy to continue to share what I've learned and what other opportunities are out there. So welcome you to reach out. And thanks again for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much, Chase. It was a wonderful presentation, both Andrea and Chase. Thank you for your time. Hey, Carrie.
There were a couple of questions I noticed that came in the chat. And I know I had a couple of questions too, because I'm a geek. The folks that typed into the chat, would you like to unmute and ask your questions? Beth, you had a couple questions.
Yeah, good afternoon. Greetings from Minnesota. I'm curious with the trial program, the rental for free program, how were people concerned about not being able to charge at their homes, or were they all able to charge at their homes?
I haven't gotten the specific feedback, but from my experience, yes, I was able to charge from my home with just the adapter that came with the car. It has an adapter. So I had the Chevy Bolt EUV, and that adapter port was able to connect to a 120 volt, just your basic outdoor outlet. And so I picked up the car in Kingsport, drove it back to my house in Johnson City, plugged it in over the weekend, and over the weekend, just from a 120 volt, got to full range, which was about 269 miles. And it also had an adapter connection where you could pull the 120 adapter off and put on a 240 volt. So similar to like a washer dryer electrical connection. So if you had just a simple outdoor outlet, in the time to have it plugged in, that you can essentially charge at home with the vehicles provided.
Jerry, I know you had a question in the chat as well about educational efforts.
Sure. Jerry Worm, I'm the director of the Regional Planning Agency, Western Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is very rural and conservative for the most part. I'm not going to hide the fact that this has become kind of a political issue. So I'm just wondering if you've gone, there's been a lot of educational efforts and some firsthand exposure and whatnot. And I'm wondering if any of that has been especially effective as far as that skepticism goes. And or if not, if you've thought about that issue and any strategies to maybe address it.
I can chime in first, and then Chase can follow up with that if he wants to. But so yes, we're a pretty rural state. We have some big cities, but we also have lots of very rural areas. And of course, we have run into skepticism as well. I've, when we were traveling the state talking about this, we're all excited, but then we would have people say, I don't know why you're doing this. We're never going to run out of oil, and then some people would say, I'm not letting my kid go to school for that because it's not really happening, so lots of skepticism, even from the mayors. They're like, why should we do this? Why do we want to do this? So there's several things. The Rural Reimagine program is amazing because once people drive those electric cars and they see the difference, and our Drive Electric, so I don't know if your state has the Drive Electric chapters, but we have a Drive Electric Tennessee here. And so they do ride and drives literally monthly in different parts of the city, different parts of the state. They'll travel around, and like yesterday, Chase and I were at one just yesterday together, and I think they had like 10 electric vehicles, and people can just get in them and drive them around and test drive them and see. So I think getting people behind the wheels is one of those big things. Another thing is talking about the economic benefits. So you try to turn it, even if they don't believe in the whole climate change, whatever, if they don't believe in the benefits, talk about dollars with them, show them the studies that say, here, EV drivers, when they sit for 15 minutes charging their car or an hour charging their car, they're going to spend an average of $27 in your store or whatever. So pull that data, find that data wherever you can, that show that how much EV drivers spend on that kind of stuff. Because if you can show them the dollars, you're more, even if they don't ever buy into it, they're like, well, I want to bring those dollars into my town. So I think that's how we've kind of won over some of our smaller areas too. Chase, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I think it's an excellent question, and honestly, a very important one that we have an honest discussion about, because that's our challenge in the Appalachian Highlands. The Appalachian populace. I mean, we are dealing with a rural conservative populace across the board, and there is great reluctance to change, but I see this as a real at the root of the word conservative, a conservative issue, because we are talking about being able to conserve our resources, to be more independent, fossil fuels, less fossil fuels dependent. And it's a fun conversation to have, and an important one to have, and it's a challenging one for I don't get far in my conversations with highway department superintendents, because they're wholly reliant on the gas tax for their project work. So I know I probably get laughed out of some of those meetings when I bring this matter up. But what hit home for me earlier this week, I was talking with Cecilia Aratola. She works for the U.S. Department of Transportation she worked for the State Department of Transportation in Idaho. And they rolled out essentially the Idaho roadmap for EVs. And she was concerned about what that public comment period would look like. And in Idaho, which I think arguably might be the most conservative state in the whole country, during that public comment period, they had folks that came out of the woodwork saying, we've been waiting on this for years. They are living off the grid. They have electric vehicles or on full solar. I mean, this is a really great opportunity for rural economic development. And that's the angle I think that works best in the conversations I've been having with our rural mayors, is look at this from an economic development perspective. I mean, I love the air quality. I love the cost savings, but from economic development, about having a charger put in your downtown, in your core downtown, or in a public place that allows those drivers to get off the interstates, get onto the beaten path, to visit that state park in your rural area, and to feel comfortable there. Allow them to spend dollars at the local diner. It's a real economic development conversation that I think has worked really well with the conversations that we've had with Mayor of Mountain City all the way to Hancock County, is having the conversation about offering this as an incentive for getting EV drivers to your area for economic development purposes. And I think that as we begin to build out this this whole area with EV charging as well, there are key parts that that need to still be addressed, which is just affordability. You know, EVs are still cost prohibitive, but you know, yesterday Andrea and I were at the symposium in Murfreesboro where they're encouraging updates about, you know, EV sales for used vehicles. You know, the used vehicle market is getting better and better for EV purchasing. So making the connections there is going to be really important. But yeah, it's a challenging conversation to have, and it's always important to you know, to listen first to what the key needs are, because you know, I had projects that were in one of my counties, all essentially they're all on ice right now because the realities at hand were bridge improvements, bridge needs have come to the fore. You know, politically, EV charging is we've just had to put that on hold, and it for what we're doing now is really looking at what opportunities are available for bridge improvements, et cetera, which that is what the public needs most and more than the charging units. And so there are just great opportunities. The federal funding opportunities, I think, that are here now are just are too good not to look into, from both the, you know, bridge improvement program, you know, the bipartisan infrastructure law. That's what I'm referring to, and the Inflation Reduction Act. It's just, I think we would be doing a disservice not sharing this information with our populace. I'm thinking about the EPA Clean Bus Program and the EPA Heavy Duty Vehicles Program. I mean, that's not a popular three-letter acronym in the area that I serve, but 100% cost coverage on the new school bus for the school district. That's an important conversation that I'm willing to have.
Thank you.
I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
Hey, Chase, Brett Alfin from NADO. So I'm curious, I'm interested in the rural EV workshops we're talking about. So like, maybe share a little bit about how did you market those, who came, what was the agenda like, you know, anything like that for folks that might want to do a similar thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we in Kingsport in Northeast Tennessee, we started the plan of having that workshop within the RPO, and through our connection with East Tennessee Clean Fuels, our Clean Cities Coalition partners, they had needs to look at looking at Kingsport specifically and the underserved populations there with an active grant they had. And we had site selections within disadvantaged communities where it's like it made sense to have it in Kingsport. And we contacted the local Chamber of Commerce, and they were very receptive and allowed us to use their space at no cost. So again, the Clean Cities partnership was really wonderful. So we co-hosted with them. And so the topics were, one, you know, I got to tell the fun story about driving from Mountain City to Memphis with, but there was a really great breakouts where we got to meet with electricians that were new to the everything EVs, you know, and also electrician contractors came in that had, you know, a lot of experience. And so the networking was wonderful. We had, you know, ICE drivers and Tesla drivers and you know, good friendly conversations. And there was a website, I think I need to find that. I think it was called routefinder.com. I was new to it in the conversation, but we just got to talking in a group setting where we went to, I think it was like a Better Route Finder. I can put it in the chat once I look it up, but it was great. You type in, you know, where you want to go from A to B on a family road trip. You can put in your specific EV vehicle, and it will give you range projections to EV charging all across the US based on your road trip that you can just pre-plan in advance. So, I learned something from that. It was really fun to work with. Yeah, that was very successful. I would point out that I think even more successful over Northwest Tennessee in March. There was also a workshop that the RPO coordinator Beth put on, and she had 75 attendees, which is a really great turnout for where she was in a very rural area of Northwest Tennessee. And she said, her most of her RPO membership showed up, which is consortium of public works directors, county mayors, superintendents, highway county department folks. Just a really great turnout. So you'd be surprised when you put one of these events on who comes out of the woodwork. They've been very productive and great experiences in Tennessee.
I've got a question for Andrea. When you were doing the engagement process, how did what you heard compare with what you expected? Both in terms of the content of what you heard, as well as who participated, how many people participated. Did it go the way you thought it would, or were there some surprises, or some of both?
Some of both, yeah. We weren't sure what to expect because this was 2 years ago and we hadn't really started it, and we were like, oh gosh, and we had, just like we said before, those skeptics that actually showed up. And I think they just wanted to come and say, what are you doing here? So we did have some skeptics, but I think one of the surprises was how many women EV drivers came. And we had the survey and we asked certain questions, but we couldn't anticipate what it was going to be. So luckily in the survey we had like kind of an open thing that said, what else? What are we missing? What are you really concerned about? And the biggest topic that we heard was safety. People said, I'm worried about going to a dark space and somebody, hijacking my car because you can't lock your doors while you're charging, and just different things like that. Like, I want to make sure that it's a lit space. So we heard overwhelmingly about safety. And so when we actually did our application, that was a huge part of our application was safety. What kind of safety aspects are you going to have? Are you open 24 hours a day? Or do you have cameras? All that kind of stuff. So I think that was a little bit of a surprise, but in the survey too, because how like you put stuff out on Facebook, right? And 90% of the comments are going to be negative. So I was like, okay, are we opening ourselves up to these negative comments when we put it in the survey and just leave it open for comments? And it was actually 100% positive. We got so many thank yous. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for, bringing this to our communities. Thank you for being here. Great job. Everything, all the comments that we got. So it was people that took the survey were interested in the subject. So it's kind of a crowd that was going to be positive anyway. But I think that was a surprise. We were very surprised that the comments were so positive. So, yeah. And then the fact that we had a lot of women show up that were driving EVs already. And we're like, okay, wow. I didn't, so maybe we need to like kind of focus on the female aspect of charging. What's it going to be like for a female to charge? She's going to want to shop, that kind of stuff. Whereas maybe a man, because my husband and I both have different charging habits, right? We have an EV. So he's going to go and sit in his car and play on his phone. I'm going to want to get out of the car and go buy a coffee. So we have different charging habits. So I think that was kind of a surprise too, is seeing the difference between female EV drivers and male EV drivers. So did that answer your question, Carrie?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know there's been a lot of research done on like male and female roles in purchasing in a household where there are both male and female adults. And so the idea of like trip chaining and doing a quick errand while you wait that 15-20 minutes for your car to charge, that seems like another interesting thing to consider.
Yeah, and that was good about the survey too, because we did ask gender at the end of the survey, so we could pull out like the female answers versus the male answers. So that was a really interesting aspect of it too.
I saw one more question in the chat. Beth asked about the Rural Reimagined source of funding, and I was wondering about the Rural Reimagined sources of match, where that came from.
I think that's for you, Chase.
Yeah, sorry, that's a great question. So the match, so to be a partner in this project, my time is being served as the match. And I've already gone over what that match is, but I was just approved on the time of up to about $9,000 to participate in service time. But for our site hosts, just to give you an example, if someone has a DC fast charging site, a big level 3 site, should that be approved, there's fewer of those, but those are up to maybe $50,000 units. Those are 100% covered by the project, as well as up to $7,000 for the site installation and maintenance. What we've seen is that the site installation could go over that, and so if you go over that 7,000 figure, then that would be on the responsibility of the site host to cover that. But fortunately, when we're it all comes down to dollars. Let's be real here. A lot of our projects, the level 2 chargers are a lot more affordable, and frankly, they make more sense. Based on when the units would be used, how many people would be serviced, using them, etc. Level 2s make sense in so many different places, from workplaces to downtown locations, etc., rural locations. But the EV wall unit, again, that site and install was reimbursed up to $2,500, which covered all of the install as well as the subscription fee. Because some of the, ChargePoint, EV Match, others, there will be an annual subscription fee to use the internal app system. And I believe with EV Match, it was a $100 annual fee. So even that was covered. So Mountain City didn't have to pay anything for any of their participation in the project. So,
but Chase, I think she was asking about the original grant to Tennessee Tech was a DOE grant.
yes.
And so the match to that grant, because I know the state of we put some money in to help match that program, and we used some of our state research dollars for that. We weren't one of the biggest. We didn't put in the whole 20%, but we did put in some, and then there was other partners that put in some of that to make up. So there was probably like 8 or 10 smaller matches that made up the 20% match for that DOE grant.
Yes, and the specific numbers I'll put right here in the chat. It was in total an $8 million project. Over $4 million was awarded by the Department of Energy, and the cost share was that match. So it looked like turned into about a 50-50 cost share with all the partners involved. Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Andrea.
I think that's what she was asking. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. So it can be easier sometimes to participate and pick people's brains in a smaller group setting. So we were going to open it up to breakout groups so that you can continue to pepper Chase and Andrea with questions, but also to learn from each other. I just recognizing the names of several folks on the line, recognize there are people from all kinds of different places, including some pretty remote rural places, some places that are pretty cold, which may affect battery life and operation. So I've got all kinds of questions about what makes a good site and where everybody is in terms of their EV charging planning. So I'm going to go ahead and open up those breakout rooms, and we'll spend about 10 minutes in there. You guys can continue to network. And if you see a button that says join, go ahead and click join and it'll take you into that room.
No. Yeah, way up north.
I guess. Welcome back. Looks like everybody had longer conversation. So is there something that we missed from the last breakout room? And was it Brett or Chase?
Yeah, we had great conversations with folks all the way from Alaska to Minnesota, and also made connections, small world connections with uh, contacts in Commonwealth of Virginia. So thanks for those who attended. But yeah, Brett and I we spoke about quite a few different things, but one like how the EV conversations that have been going and how we've incorporated those into our planning processes, specifically like for the regional transportation plan that we just completed in our region. But then got some really good feedback from folks in Alaska. They're doing everything from electrical ferries, and the conversation can move from cars to boats to OHVs, and so to ag equipment. And I think that's a really important part of this rural conversation. So.
That's great. Thanks, Chase. Anybody else would like to share something that they discussed or learned about in the breakout room?
I took a bunch of notes as Andrea talked about the talking with communities about their future plans for charging. That some of the important discussion questions are, why do they want the chargers? Where do they need it? How have they engaged the public? And do they have a real ADA plan around making sure the chargers are accessible? Those are some things I hadn't considered before. It seemed those were highlights for me from our breakout group discussion in room 1.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention too is the matching funds, because obviously you already know that higher the matching funds, you have a better rate of getting a grant. So if possible, working together with the private companies that are in your region would be a best bet to get funding. I'm sure Chase would agree with that. Yep. Anything else anybody wants to share? Yep. Thank you. Well, this is a quiet group here. Any questions? Anybody wants to discuss in a larger group? Alrighty then, I will go ahead and close this session. So I just want to mention the recording of this session will be made available on our website. And once the recording is available, I'll make sure to email it out to this group. And then also as a follow-up, we are working on an issue brief on this same topic that will be hopefully done in less than a month or so, and it will be available on our website too. So that will discuss more in depth about what an EV is, to what's the policy framework, and how some of these examples, like today, I'm gonna talk more about other states as well, so that everybody has enough information to think about what's going on in other parts of the country. And then also as a follow-up too, we have a regional transportation planning conference coming up end of July 30th to August 1st. It's in Greenville, South Carolina. And we are planning to have a session just on EVs. So if you're planning to be there, that'll be a good place to listen to that, along with other transportation related sessions. You get to meet your other peers, state DOTs, other stakeholders, etc. But if you plan to join that conference, please reach out to us, and we'll make sure to get you signed up for that conference as well. Well, that's all I have. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Andrea and Chase, for all your help. Thanks, Gary. All right, then you all have a
Thanks,
good day and
everyone.
a nice weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for the invitation to join. Thanks.